and whatever I see is smiling at me. Love is who I am. Hello there, beloved Ascension pioneers, and welcome to this Ascension update with me for the month of June and beyond, which is also a galactic update this time, which means that there will be a lot of knowledge shared and a lot of the things and how we're moving through the ascending waves of our human nature and how we can apply these things I'm going to talk about in our day-to-day reality, because this is the whole focus of my way showing, is not just, toss and turn around all these spiritual concepts, which of course are important, these spiritual understandings of the basic creation principles and how they're being precipitated back into our current timeline and awareness of our human psyche, but also how we can apply them, so that is why usually I talk about things in terms of spiritual concepts, but then I also bring about some of the perspectives of how this serves us and how we're actually gathering information of how to move through these waves. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the energy of June a little bit, and then I want to give a bit of the cosmic perspective. So the June, a lot of people are talking about, and you have a lot of astrologers online. I'm personally not an astrologer myself, but sometimes I follow up with some things just to be a little bit on the alignment with what I'm feeling and tuning into myself as well. So as you know, June is going to have a 6 vibration, which is a 15 add up, which means there will be more alchemy for us coming through and more alignment with our soul. A lot of people are saying that this is an extreme month of capacity for love, but not just that, not everything is always on the bright side, because as you know, light and shadow aspects of us coexist. So what is most striking for me right now at this time is that we have these trines. I think it's Jupiter and Pluto, but at the same time we're going to have a grand square, which is always when we have these squares, we're being pushed through something that is just inevitable for us. This means that there's something we just simply need to face, something that's coming up for us, and there's no way in kind of trying to, kind of find our way around it. It's just something that straightforwardly needs to be met with all of our aspects. So this is what we're doing with our Ascension. We're meeting all aspects of ourselves. But also Mars will be in Scorpio retrograding until the end of the month, which a lot of astrologers are saying this links to much deepening with our psyche, going to the extremes of depth, because Mars is already an extreme planet, and Scorpio, as you know, goes into the very depths, and it's also where initiation takes place through the shadow, through sacred union and merging as well. So there's a lot of re-merging of that sacred union energies happening, and it's very intense. So there's a buildup of this threshold coming up, and the threshold is a word that I've been hearing a lot lately. So the threshold means that you're right on the verge before you're actually birthing a new dynamics. The new dynamics always happens when there's a dynamic tension happening within our souls. So how do we notice these things? It's very simple. The energy dynamics takes place with the extreme polarized opposite. So when the dynamic tension appears, we feel it as intensity. What does that mean? Well, we gotta actually come into the counterbalancing of our polarized opposites. I teach this in all of my mastery courses, basically, especially in my Cosmic Beloved course. How do we meet these aspects and bring these counterparts into unity consciousness? So whenever there's a threshold happening, and this month, everything has a dualistic side, two sides of the same coins. We're in a Gemini period now, which is Gemini is the new moon. It's our first lunation in this month. It's on June 4th or 5th, depending where we are in the planet. But this lunation I think it has Venus in the equation as well with the moon. And this means that we do have greater capacities for love. But that love, in order for us to be revealed in our new levels of abundance and that love, means that there's some things that we need to see, some things we need to, prior to that, integrate and understand more of ourselves. Because on each new level of love, the deepening will occur through that which has been, in a way, feeling as separate or less than. So to build new dimensional spaces within us, that actually occurs through this dynamic tension. And if you find yourself having a relationship which feels intense or challenging, or if you're not meeting its aspect in the physical, let's say there's a person who won't meet up with you physically and do the work, you're going to have to do that work in the dream time. You're going to have lots of processing. I've been having this processing for the last 2 weeks. Has been really intense. May as they like to say, it's a very light month, and I've always felt it like, roses and everything starts to blossom in nature. But this year, as I've been moving through, because we're going through a lot of completion, it's a 9 universal year, and for a lot of us, this completion is coming from all the loopholes. It's kind of like wanting to emerge from all the different angles of our lives. And even though we want to sometimes look away and ignore it, we can't skip steps. What I've been shown by spirit is that a lot of people who just gather a lot of information, gobble, 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 and they're not doing the processing, they're not doing integration, and after that they feel sadness and longing for this higher realms energy. And I have a lot of people who say, oh, I feel this longing, or and they feel sadness then in their lives, is because a lot of the times that's not good for us to only swallow up so much higher dimensional light information but not do the work of integration in our human lives. That will always kind of push us out of the balance. So there's the other opposite of the human equation, where they're humans who are actually still asleep and they're not receiving these information and they're not moving forward in that way, but they're just learning through practical life examples. So how do we meet these aspects if we take a look at ourselves as a collective humanity, that we don't just gather knowledge, 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 do all the research, because the whole nature of the Gemini, the twins, is it's always trying to counterbalance itself by seeing through the looking glass of information coming at different extremes and different angles of creation. So Gemini is known to spark up a lot of creative imagination within us. And for me, I always see that within my own cycles, I bring most of my cosmic stuff, most of these creations, around the time when the sun is in Gemini. Because Gemini is almost like when we feel our inner union at its most complete state, but it can feel lots of friction energy, a lot of frenetic energy in the air as well, because there's a lot of stimuli happening and the nervous system is being very much wired in a new sense. And not just that, I want to talk about also this photon belt energy. So there's a part of us that we feel is linear. And when I say I'm going to talk about the energy of now, which is June, we feel that part of us is moving through the linear process of ascension. And the whole reason for me doing these videos and these updates is for the processing of our ascension, not for the part of us that is vertical. And you just say, we already know all of that. We're already enlightened. Why do we need that? Because our human bodies, our vessels are going through this transformation, and it's just what's happening. So during the unfolding, during the course of this, we are presented with information that we need on each step. And that's how I work with spirit. I'm always shown the things that I need to know and that my group needs to know, and when it's really needed for us. So that's why I do the short energy review, but I don't want to go too much in it, because it's not just, when people say this month will be like this and that, and it has the potentials. Yes, the potential is there, but I rather share on the aspects of us that are aspects of our conscious co-creation self that are actually doing the work. Because if we integrate, we will feel the benefits and effects of that. When we're on the other side of the bridge we've crossed, when we are across that through new threshold, and we've allowed ourselves to move through this dynamic tension, because for a lot of people it's so challenging, they don't want to move through it, feels intense, and they don't like intensity, so they rather say cut this away from our lives, or cut the person that doesn't serve you, or the relationship that doesn't serve you, when in fact we should ask ourselves the question, why is this dynamic tension in our life? What are we actually processing? It doesn't matter whether it's for the collective or you, because there is no more separation. And I have to share something very beautiful with you, that during one of my recent sessions, a person asked me, what do you perceive about the unfolding of the human collective? Where are we, kind of in a general way, with our ascension? And the thing is that as I tried to tune in, I said, but I can't even tune in through the old collective, because the thing is, ascension, and we're going to talk about it here, with these layers of the onion, we're each finding ourselves in our personal timeline where we are. And a lot of us, because we're already building towards that new earth consciousness, we are participating with our own cosmic entanglements. And that is why we no longer tune into this old collective, because for us it's simply just already, it feels like it's disintegrated. I felt like, but it's not there anymore. I can no longer tune into the energies of war. It cannot need these aspects anymore. They're still there, but because we kind of embrace this bigger aspect, more expanded version of our consciousness. And remember, it's the consciousness that shifts us, it's that shifts our body. the spiritual shifts don't happen with the mind. You can have all sorts of spiritual concepts and quotes and whatever you want, or motivations, motivational speeches. Well, that is something that maybe it's a stepping stone, but it's the shift in consciousness that actually creates the shift in our human form. It's directly related. So, when people say thoughts create, yeah, but if the consciousness is there, it has to be through that awareness which shifts. It's just the mind is just mental processing, and that's why I say if you're not integrating all that light and information you're receiving, a lot of people are going to feel sad or depleted because they're feeling, well, my physical life does not match this, what I'm reading in the spiritual books, what I'm browsing through online. It's because they're not allowing themselves to not just push for the information so much, but to go through the processing that requires their human self and processing our human emotions and our relationships. And that is why we're this work of balancing. Our balance integration is so important because our ascension requires that. We need to be happy and fulfilled on these levels. Otherwise, ascension will feel like hard work. And it's not supposed to feel like hard work. It's supposed to feel, let me tell you this, it's supposed to feel spontaneous, magical, and liberating. When something feels like it's holding you back, and people always say, I'm blocked. You're not blocked. And I'll explain this here when we move into this processing here. But there's a lot to share, so please bear with me. And sometimes I do apologize myself. I talk fast because I get hyper and excited about all this. So I'm sorry. Maybe you should put me on a slow mode when you're watching my YouTube videos. But it's hard for me to kind of try to put all this into a most synthesized way. Everything I want to share and comes through because I have it all written down as well. So what's taking place is that even what is perceived as a blockage, there's a difference between something your mind creates as a incapability for you to do something, or when you're an initiative spirit and you have to go through your processing, you cannot skip steps, and you know that you can't go from A to Z, you're going to have to go A, B, C, it depends, but you will be shown these connecting dots, and you won't be able to skip steps. So someone might, from their spiritual perception, say, why aren't you doing here and just moving from here to here? Are you blocked? Are you blocking yourself? But a lot of times it's not even a blockage, it's something that your higher self orchestrated for you because it's simply not available for you at this time. It doesn't mean the potential is not there and you're moving towards it, but sometimes maybe you gotta finish up, A, B, C, D, some other things before. So it is, in a way, very important for us as we're moving through this energy to be really grounded. And I'm going to talk about this as well, and how to not create these energy leakages. We're going to talk about this at the very end. But first, I want to talk about the photon belt, because this word pops up a lot. Recently, a lot of people are mentioning, some are saying they're feeling the photon belt, and I want to go to the Wikipedia and see what they've been writing about here. And it says that the photon belt, the photon band, or a golden nebula, is a spiritual belief largely linked to some parts of the New Age movement, and postulates that a bell or ring of photons is going to envelop the earth, causing a cataclysm or initiating a spiritual transition, with the time period leading to the shift we refer to as the awakening and the quickening. The concept of the photon belt also ties into various phenomena, including belief in extraterrestrial intelligence and so on. And it actually says that the core of the photon belt beliefs is that there is an immense belt of photons orbiting around the Pleiades. According to the New Age beliefs, Earth will pass through this belt or photons, resulting either in humanity's elevation to a higher plane of existence, the end of the world, or both. It depends on which timeline you're tuning into. So, yeah, sometimes they say that it represents a temporary window for spiritual transition, during which time humans can reach a higher level of existence, which they term the galactic level of the human being. So what I'm always shown with the photon belt is almost like this precipitation of energy, and it's almost like, if you imagine, and that's why I'm calling it a super cosmic highway, because it's almost like Earth is, when they're Hollywood and they kind of put that red carpet on, right? And people are walking through that red carpet, it feels like that. And instead, it's not a red carpet, but it's more like it's like a white light that precipitates. And this light comes from the mothership of the pure and tainted divine love. It's like a call back home. And just this week, as I was hiking, and sometimes when we are tuning into higher levels, and I'll explain this when we get to this part down here, how we integrate these new levels, is each time when you open up a new level, there will come at this longing, like, ooh, because you will feel a new level of your expanded self. And for that first part, before you integrate it in your human physical form, you know, kind of like when you meet a person you very much like or love or fall in love with, the first pining is the most intense. It's like, wow, you know, but then when you integrate the relating experience, it's not that intense. It's the same thing. So with each unlocking level and layer of that new penetrating consciousness, the first aspect is always the longing. Oh, you know, sometimes you have tears of remembrance. And when I was in one of these most recent unveilings, which was this weekend, I got this beautiful elven poem starting to descend through my ears, and I was just observing and starting to cry because I was just so moved by it. And I don't remember the melody anymore, but the lyrics were, every time you feel alone, just dial 101 for home and you will receive more. There was a lot more, but I'm sharing the basics because the thing is that with each new emerging level of the self, there will be a time that we need to process that new self. And at those times, we might feel more sensitive, more vulnerable, more exposed. And that's why the guidance was just call. Remember the link up you always have with the 101, you know, and 101 is also the number of our twin soul, which is the one with the zero in between, which is that zero space where all time and place, time and space cease to exist because we're in that unity consciousness. So we're always having that dial up. And it's the connection link to our own sacred home, to our sacred space. It's just that often we can get overwhelmed with this new and we forget. And we forget that we can do that. So just by tuning in, and we can receive more messages, more love pouring, so we can have that peaceful feeling. And that's what they reminded me of, especially because there's such great intensity happening. And with this, what I've been tuning into with this new photon belt energy is like it's a stargate. It's like a gateway through which our Earth passes as she's moving through her birth canal into a new ascended experience. And it basically it's a very simple and organic thing in the nature of the whole cosmos. When we understand existence, we're never going to understand all of it, right? Because we're tiny, minute aspects of it. But from our human perspective, there is a degree to which we can understand it through these concepts or archetypes that spirit is showing us so that we can feel not separate from the whole cosmos and what's happening because we're not separate from it. So the more we actually find the way to be in tune with this higher truth and what's happening and how to live it, how to actually feel at peace with our earthly human experiences, the more we're living that lives of integrated self. And when people are not integrated, like I said, they can either escape. What we do is how we try to handle this, the longing, or you know, we don't always understand what it means. So those who are maybe more awake spiritually, they will go up. So they will try to deal with the situations that feel too intense, or when that dynamic tension is created, they're going to want to go up. And it's kind of like escapism happens through the upper realms. While the people who are not awake, they're more asleep, their escapism methods, they seem to go more downwards. And they try to, you know, use the ways that will get them more rooted into the denser, forgetful state. So it doesn't matter. It's all the same. It's how the polarities are evening out. There is no better or worse because we've all sometimes been there, here or there, and we've been kind of coping with these escapism methods. But with the Stargate, that brought me to another level of studying the 12 Universal Stargates Tree of Life, the real Tree of Life. I've been mentioning this before in my videos. Those of you who want to do the greater study work, I know there's a lot of you who want to go deeper, and just recently when this information started coming through, that was this weekend, I was actually shown, because I didn't even ask. I was just sitting there bathing in the, you know, I wasn't bathing directly in the water because it's too cold, but I was in between the water on a rock pillar. And all of a sudden I get this number, I get 33 masters. I'm like, what does this mean? And they showed me that there's a 33 masters specifically in our Ascension Pioneers group. That we're actually holding the highest capacity of the highest light, that it's actually creating the new earth grid. It's co-creating and fueling it because we do know how, and we're the most, how to call it, just it needs to have such a grounded light, because what a lot of people are doing with the whole ascension, a lot of them are moving just up. It requires a lot of stamina, a lot of courage, a lot of spiritual initiation for you to not just be there with the ascended light. That's the easier part, to wake up and go into the ascended worlds. But to then, with this beautiful purity where you are, it's like, ah, remembrance, ooh, I have to drop it down. No, 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 no. And then you want to hold your defenses up there. So it was shown that these 33 masters that are actually capable right now at this point who are doing this. And of course, it will expand, but that's what I was shown now. And it was like, okay, I'm just going to take it as it is, as I received it, because it did resonate at that point. Those who are, they know what they're doing. They feel what they're doing. They don't need to talk about it. They just know. So I'm going to go back to these 12 universal stargates. Is you have this, I think it's in the Ascension library online. Also, you can just Google it and write in the 12, the real tree of life, the 12 stargates, the 12 primary stargates of the universal Templar complex. So you can find the sketch, especially it's very well described in the Ascension library. I'm not going to go into it because then there's going to be a whole course. How we don't want that. It's actually showing us these different aspects of us, because one thing is to become a galactic human, then a universal human, then all these aspects. And when you're a universal human, you become the ultimate universal guide, and you know how to spread your consciousness so it can move and always travel through these basic stargates, so that it can reach every single level through where your energy needs to be. And I will talk about this a little later, but it all begins with this 12th point, which is the wide point. I will refer here again to the prism of Lyra in the book, because the prism is that state before everything started to fragment, and it went into this different, like I said, different venues. Different rays were created, different focuses, and even different planetary systems and star systems, and within them planetary systems. So if you look at here, you have the Lyra and the Soul, then you have the Andromeda, you have the Lyra and the Lyra Avalon, what it says here, then you have the Lyra Vega, you have the Gaia, Sirius and Sirius A and B, then you have the Arcturus and Omega Centauri, then you have the Tara in the middle, Alcyon Pleiades, and here you have Venus, Alpha Centauri, Earth, and then you have Alcyon. Oh, sorry, I already said that. Then you have here the Soul, the Sun, Nibiru. Then you have the inner Earth and Epsilon, and then in the first one is the parallel Earth, the Theta Orion. So there is so much here we can study, but basically what I wanted to bring up with this, that the focus really, really is on these densities. And this is also described here along the side if you're going to go into Ascension Library and study this. And I do recommend that you, if you feel called to this and you want to work with these, with your aspects, just consciously putting your energy there. You don't have to have now all the knowledge. It doesn't have to be, it's not a mental thing. It's just, the moment I kind of sketched this for myself from the internet and put it in my notebook and I kind of write it down, I already feel, okay, for now the work is complete. I don't have to have a mental understanding of it. I'm just going to go into the part of me that knows this already. It's just up for me to bring it up consciously, and then the aspects that need to come with more knowledge, more expansion will come in divine timing. That's how the part of us that is a grounded part, the part that wants to integrate, not just activate, this part works like this. And that's why I'm sharing with you how I experience, so that maybe it helps you along with your journey. It's a very good chart. So here I wrote it down, although you also have it online, with the different densities. So the 3D being the physical reality, and that is the density 1, so the physical dimension. Then you have the 5D, which is semi-physical, the density 2. Then you have the 7D, which is etheric dimension, density 3, level 3. And then you have the pre-matter, which is the 4th density, and no time, which is the density 5. So this is, in a way, very much conceptual, and yet we can really, really kind of try to feel into it. What does this mean for us as we're as humans? So it all begins here, like I said, with the white. And here on the top, we have the founder's three-folded flame. What does that mean? Also, you can find it in the sketch, but I don't want to go too much into it. I just want to read what it said here in the chart. And it says, the structure of the macrocosmic universal tree of life is replicated within the microcosmic personal tree of life, which is the tree of life, our own divine blueprint that we all have. The individual human anatomy, which is physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, is manifest upon and within the multidimensional layers instructed by the core manifestation template, the tree of life. Every aspect of the universal creation and life spiral are designed and is instructed through these blueprint structures. So it's learning to travel consciously through the tree of life in the pathway is the pathway to personal sovereignty and freedom. So I wanted to give you this as a more grander perspective that you can work with, but in a grounded sense, which means allowing your soul to show you what you need to know. With each aspect, they will represent it to us. And I teach a little bit about this in my multidimensional ascension course. So now I want to go to the part 2, where we're going to get more practical with the application of what this means for us. So I know that is a lot of ground to cover, and today's going to be a long video, but still I want to really say that basically these 12 universal points all show us aspects of us and how these greater aspects, how they travel, how they're interconnected with each other. And like I said, it's not so much important for us to do a lot of research that way, but what is the intent of it is that we have a more understanding nature, how everything interconnects, how we're a part of this whole picture, and how as we're coming in fragmenting from higher perspectives, we're spreading our energy, so we're traveling physically through that. And the photon belt, the super conscious, the super cosmic highway, in a way it awakens our divine remembrance into that. So it's almost like we're traveling through a tunnel when we're waking up to what some people are calling becoming the galactic humans. And it's almost like the umbilical cord that takes us back to that mothership, which is our remembrance into who we truly are. And that is, for me, physically, I see it as a light shower. I see it as a pouring light shower that gets us through the age of purification. And they've all been saying that no one actually knows when we're kind of hitting the whole thing, but it's kind of like they're saying, right, the concentric circles. So that's why when we're feeling these shifts in our ascension and our ascending physical reality, we feel it like bursts of energy, like tiny contractions. So we sometimes feel very elevated, very active, blissful, and then woo, a wave of ascension and integration takes place. So I also want to talk about what this means in terms of I've been already sharing with those of you who've been more service to the whole oriented selfless service, is that now with this we're mastering our polarities. We're returning to the balance of living the mission age and then our human self. So the selfless service to all versus self-service, and this is unificating so that we're becoming an integrated human, integrated humanity. So we have, in a way, the love of our human aspect, our human counterpart, the human race at large. And I will again remind you of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still, when there was an ET being that was already enmeshed with the collective of humans, and he said, although I know it's not perfect, but I've loved them. I've just learned to love them. And he started crying. There was this old Chinese guy, I think, and he said, I'm not leaving the planet, because I've learned to love them. They have good sides. So this is a message for us to embrace all sides of us as we're traveling through this. It's like all these sparkles are being brought up. So as well as we're receiving from our higher counterparts, our stellar archetypes, we're also receiving messages from our earthly bodies, from our earthly selves, and this kind of is unifying. And as we're being pushed through that tunnel, the precipitation of this light shower of white light, we're kind of having the time, we're being offered the time to synthesize that. So I've been also reminded of this difference because a lot of people ask me, what does it mean? Who's my soul family? Or, and they said, what's the difference? And what I was shown is that we only feel an aspect of soul calling and soul longing, like the longing for soul family, until we're still working on our personal soul lessons. So we're working on unifying these fragments of our soul. And as we're unifying them, we feel, oh, what's our soul family? Because these aspects show us how to merge that within ourselves. Because not just that we are whole from the outside, we're also whole from the inside. So when we're longing for something like that, that longing is a way shower for us. It's our signpost of what actually we have been brought forth, where we're being moved through to integrate from within. But this changes once you've pushed and moved into more group consciousness, because I've shared this with you before, that on a group consciousness level, beyond a certain density, beyond the 7th density, is actually everything exists as group and as councils of light. So on that level, everything is simply light councils that actually if they want to assist, they spread, and they spread these particles of light. So they spread them through these stargates, so they can precipitate and come into these forms of density in order to assist, to lift up back, to lift life back up. So what I've always been shown is that the higher counterparts of who we are, we sometimes see them as ET beings, but a lot of us, we're waking up to our greater potentialities, and we're lifting these lower parts of us up, just as on a greater cosmic level, these ET beings are lifting off the humanity just by guiding it, just by reminding of it who they are. They're not lifting us up in physical ET ships, although yeah, for some of you, you might find that an option. But I'm saying that it's always the higher that uplifts the lower. That's the nature of evolution. It's not that anything is seen as we're doing that out of desperation. It's just when something is ready to evolve, it will evolve either way. It's just that, here's a helping hand, come on, reach higher. So there's like this balance, like I said, between living this mission reality, because for a lot of us, I've been mission driven my whole life. But there's an aspect now that says, but I also want to live and enjoy life, because it feels like a certain segment of the mission is completing. And what we've been doing, like I said, a lot of us were gathering data to have the data once we're on the other side, so that we can show this and be as way shores for those who are gonna continue to move through this passageway. Yeah, so the love of us meeting ourselves on all levels, our stellar counterparts, all these aspects, and our earthly counterparts, as well as our darkest selves, which are not really dark. They're just different densities. They're holding a space for different densities, because always the potential for all experiences exists in creation, because there's a continuous looping of experience. I also want to talk about direct source incarnations, because sometimes they're mentioned in books from Dolores Cannon. And recently I've had a dream when an astrologer made a video, and I was sending this video to my sacred sister, and I said, look what she's sharing. Because she shared about that sometimes, she said, sometimes God, like source, sends direct signposts, sends direct fragmentations of itself, which reminded me again that these direct source, almost like imprints, right? It's source self-created. These are self-created. It's not the same as reincarnation. That's the only difference, is that these aspects don't move through cycles of reincarnation, but they're direct descendants. And that means that they're no more or less important. They exist, if you've been reading Dolores Cannon material, because this planet, as in its form of needing to uplift itself, needed pure souls who didn't have that remembrance or the entanglement of the karmic wheels and knowing such things as certain feelings that are lower density feelings. And therefore this happened. So when this came through a message, I knew there's something I need to talk about here, because what this means is that the purpose is of these direct source incarnations is to gather and master consciousness traits via these essences. So this kind of happens when this master consciousness traits, like I said, we have these training grounds, right? And these are all training grounds, all these different levels. So it kind of descends these aspects, they kind of become interstellar aspects, and as they're bleeding through different realities. So actually what happens is, we're learning to and mastering to become the ultimate universal guide. And these direct source imprints that descend into worlds of physicality, not because they are simply wanting to have their own experience or because they're young. They're not young. They have the program to assist. They're imprinted, they're inborn, interbred with the program of assistance, with a strong encoding of the founder's frequency. And you can read about the founders in the books from Salva Kelly, also the Prism of Lyra, which is the creators, the initial original planners of the human race, of the whole creation. And this remembrance within them is very strongly imprinted. That's why we feel sometimes, am I this creator? Am I this founder? Am I this? Because the awareness of that consciousness is planted with those aspects that kind of come as these pure source, not incarnations, but they're self-generated. There's no grouping even involved here. All is based on choice. There's no grouping like we say, okay, soul groups, and it's just these like I said, counterparts. It's just counterparts. So there's a different way of how it's just a different variety to how source experience, how we all experience. But they're self-generated, and everything for them is based on choice and alignment, and then they create in accordance to that creation. So they carried the seed of how Creator creates from that seeding, which is strong divine remembrance of the founder's template. So they're self-generated and created the master creators, and they carry this remembrance. It's very hard to explain this, but it's just a strong knowing. It's a strong pull towards that. And the point here again is the level of consciousness and why that consciousness chose to travel to this density. And that's for each one of us who are as divine uniqueness, divine individuals, to wake up to the aspect of creation that we are and that we represent. Because when we're aligned with it, everything flows for us. And we're not on the same, although we're all from the same source, we're not all from the same spectrum of how we actually came even to this density. We have a different travel. So I want to also mention here something very beautiful that I was recently shown, because it's almost like here, right? All the energy was spread out. Imagine that by coming to this planet Earth, that it's not just you as you carrying the seed, but your seed potential is so vast with this founder's this founder's template imprinted. It's that your ripples out will be intense, and you will be able to plant those seeds energetically through your, it's not just coming from your soul lineage, but your physical DNA lineage as well. And recently I was shown this because I was asking myself, this is so strange that I have so many people coming and connecting with me from especially the United States, right? And then I remember that many years ago, when my father was still alive, and he discovered we have relatives in California, in America. And the thing was, we kind of searched them up and we had a few email exchanges. And the thing was that they had a mutual grandfather, and that lineage, that generation went to search for better life, and they went to America. And Spirit said, you see how interconnected the soul and human DNA lineage are. So how vast and wide is our reach. So they showed me that our reach, our seed travels. So it like reverberates through these, it's almost like canals, right? It's these root canals, and it travels. So you're connected with these vertical lineages, but also horizontal lineages. And I was shown that as that aspect of us of our family tree lineage, it went to USA. So now it kind of returns to me from those seeds. I have a lot of people from USA that connect to me and the purpose of Ascension Pioneers. So I don't have to do this physically, but it just showed me how vast things are happening for us that we don't always see, but on an energetic level. So it's not just this soul agreements that those coming in to serve the whole through us as we align with it, but also a human DNA light transfer that occurs. So I shared with you the story of my family lineage and the part that traveled to USA. So it's like my largest audience is probably from USA. So they showed me this, that for a lot of us, we're planting seeds on so many layers, but because we're most of the times existing in just our linear human fashion, we can't always see that until we start expanding, of course, our consciousness. So even with our relationships, when we travel through them, when we have those experiences, we're not always seeing that they're so multi-layered. They're just so multidimensional. When we think of something that occurs, right, on the surface physical level, we say, oh, we have this drama, I don't want to go through this, I want to cut the cords, But the thing is that the integration for what a lot of us are doing at the creation core level, it happens that it's unfolding in so many levels. And I've experienced this just recently, something that I thought is just going to be a certain completion, something, a cycle of a few years back, and something needing to realign. But it actually unlocked gateways of great potential and the beloved awakening on many more levels, and the seeding and through sacred sexuality, the burst, the part of me that wanted to come into that expression in the physical form. I was showing just how many layers. It's not just the personal physical exchange we have on the appearing outside. There's so much more. And when we have the depth to go to the depth, when we have that awareness, then we can explore and discover so much, and the dreams will reveal to us a lot. So those of you who are already doing that, I'm sure you're already getting these signs. And what I wanted to say here as well is that in my Cosmic Beloved course, I kind of teach about that, how you can relate to all these different aspects, so that more quickly you can see how this relates to you, because it is for your mastery, for your ultimate beloved attainment. I also want to say, now I want to move to this picture here, which is the layers of the onion. Okay, this is basically the emphasis. Everything I've shared now, I know it was a little scattered from here and there, but these are the aspects that I really wanted to write in my notebook that wanted to come through. For each of you, maybe something you will consider important, something less important. I always do that for the group, for our group. Sometimes people ask me questions and I say, look, I rather put it all out here in the video because I don't have time to discuss with everyone personally. It's just too many people that would want to then, have these debates and discussions unless you're guided to work with me in integration personally via sessions. But I'm trying to cover as most as I can in these updates so that everyone can get something from it, right? So something for each here. So what I was shown is that I watched a certain video, right? And it was about, I don't know, two people, mother, father, God. I don't know these people. But the thing was, I kept asking myself because, there was just such disentanglement from the embodied earthly experience that, I just didn't get it. I say, how do these beings, what kind of part of the whole process are they within? Because I'm sure they must be as well. Everything is interconnected. And a lot of these expressions that we choose to, expressions that only go upwards, right? The unintegrated expressions, and a lot of times we see a lot of fanatic expression in it. Everything's just wow and woo, and or sometimes there's even the denial of the physical, of our actual physical processing, of our actually physical ascension integration. So it was shown that as the veils now are dissolving, a lot of these mental illness and challenges will start to occur and be more present. I think I read that in Salva Kelly's books as well, because people cannot cope with the integrated aspect if they're not really doing the work of this balanced integration, if they're only being, driven either upwards or just downwards. And these challenges actually result of the unprocessed and unintegrated new light. So if one is not aware, not spiritually mature to understand a certain wisdom, and I was shown if the wisdom comes into the wrong hands, which means someone again who's not balanced and not processed, which means that they don't have the soul capacity yet at this time in their current reality. That's all I'm saying. If they're not able to process something, they're gonna maybe have either a different understanding of what it is, they will corrupt that, they will kind of create a lot of illusion and distortion around it, and that will get them to a certain, like a little own bubble of something they created. And sometimes that's what we call, we say if someone's bubble gets to, needs to get burst. It's because this unprocessed light, this new streaming light of truth, and this gnostic truth, this higher knowledge that in the past, in the mystery schools, it was only available for the initiated ones, not because it was, needs to be hidden. When people say Illuminati are bad, a lot of them, what they're doing with hiding this knowledge away from the masses is because they think they're doing it right. They think because a lot of them are not yet ready. And they're just holding it for themselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what's not really of the highest expression is that not everyone gets to decide on their own. But in truth, we can, because the knowledge is now everywhere. It's just that, like I said, when if it's approached in non-alignment, if it's not integrated, it can create a lot of illusions, a lot of distortions and fanatic expression with a lot of people, to the extreme cases, even mental challenges and mental illness. And recently, when I've been talking to my sacred sisters, a lot of people like that are emerging out now. They're saying, I'm God, or I'm Jesus. It's like people saying weird stuff. And we're like, what is this? We're continuously asking yourself. And it's because this light, this streaming of photon light is so intense that it's really creating, like the pendulum. If you're very much to the extreme, it will swing like this. If you're in the balance, you won't feel the swing so much. It'll be like this. And if you're really in the middle, you'll feel like a strong static pillar, because you know how to ground that light. So we need to be initiated into each segment of the wisdom we're ready to process, because then we go into the extreme of such expressions like false light or false fanatism or things like that, which is much of that we can witness in the new age. And I know that is also part of the collective processing, but sometimes knowledge can fall in the wrong hands because people make something of it that's really not, and then people are just tossing around this information, and it's almost like you hand a wrong part of equipment to a baby, and they don't yet know what they're going to do with it. So it's just how it is. What sometimes I also experienced was, what I want to say is that I was shown that we cannot really, like I said, ground this new light template if we're not really becoming the grounded spiritual being. And here's the difference between the word A lot of times people use in the New Age, which is the ground crew, and I never resonated with that word because it sounds like, are we a cleaning crew or something? It kind of makes us feel less than. It's like, again, it creates this duality between the higher stellar counterparts and the ground crew. It's just us earthlings, right? What? It doesn't make sense. So I changed it into the grounded, you know. It's like not a ground crew, but we're grounded masters. We're doing this work now in a grounded sense. So the duality lies there, but we want to make it just about our counterparts, you know? Not like these lower, higher aspects, but it's not even a crew, like ground crew. It's just gonna come and clean up the mess. It's actually more about the understanding that we need to be grounded with each level that we get, otherwise we can receive. So here I drew this picture with the layers of the onion, and what is really in necessity is that this inner, right? You see the inner layer here. It's the little tiny dot in it, and it looks like this, like a womb. And it says the unity of one. And the unity of one, for us to be in balance, which if you can see here, like an infinity symbol, right? That's always, energy is always interflowing. This unity of one that we can reach on our level needs to always directly mirror the unity of all. So if we cannot be in that vortex yet, sometimes we're going to go to the extreme and we're going to just go here, or some people just go here, right? And we always want to have that balance. We want to have that integrated self-awareness. So what happens is that when we're moving through these layers, right, we're actually, and I've shared this with you before in previous videos, that we're breaking through the codes of the matrix and moving into this new grid system. I'm going to explain the process. But like I've said, in the sphere of spirit, with our balance integration, there will always be this flow of the unity. If there's friction, it will feel like it's cut. And it almost feels like the part of the people's connecting links, which is the link between the higher realms and the lower planes of existence. It's almost going to be like a little torn. And their perception will be a bit weird or biased or filtered. So what's here important is that we can't really anchor through such great capacity if we don't have that integration, if we're not in this vortex. So I'm going to explain the process, what's actually happening, because this is what I received this weekend. Was when we're doing this, right, we're always moving into these expanded, more ascended versions of us, right? But for us to descend as well, there will always need to be an interaction between the ascended aspects of us and those that are descended at the same time. So the descension process, which is the integration process, occurs simultaneously, and without it, there can be no such thing as this flow of the unity symbolism, right? So when we break through, right, onto a new level, and I've drew this here, let's say we're this aspect here, and we come here, and we meet a certain resistance. Why? Because each level of this is almost like each layer has a key that only our awakened consciousness can activate. You know, when there was the scriptures that in the ancient pyramids, there was only those who have the key energetically, vibrationally, that they can open up, and they're going to know who they are and how to do that, because it was an energetic library in a way. This is kind of like the same thing. So for you to enter in a new space, like I said, we're always breaking into new spaces. That's what we're doing. But then we're bringing that back and integrating. When this will happen, when we're going to, people say, sometimes they feel blocked, but it's not a blockage. It's the veil. It's like a thin veil that is between one layer and the other layer. That's all there is. And for us to become spiritually initiated on that level, we need an actual experience. And people sometimes don't get that you can't just be initiated of spirit by just the logic and just by spiritual concepts. We need an actual experience that will ground us into that which we're penetrating through, into this new level. So here we meet up with, a lot of times we meet up with resistance. And when we do that, it can feel like an energy barrier. Feel like sometimes like there's something you're supposed to attain or reach, but you can't know how, or there's something you can't yet visualize. It's almost like, imagine you have a water balloon over your head and you can't have your guidance, and you feel, why am I blocked? Why am I not receiving this? And once you do that and you crack through the barrier, what does it feel like? The water balloon above your head bursts open, the water just pours through, and all the guidance on that level of that attainment pours through you. It precipitates through you. That's the most basic explanation I can give you here. So here, there's this need for spirit initiation and initiated initiative. Initiative means initiation. Initiative implies action, conscious action, right? So this is where we're going to have these experiences, because what I was shown is, and you, it was very funny for me because I'm not a mathematician at all. I really did not have good grades with mathematics, and I don't understand these words. But as I was shown this visual on this weekend, and I was walking and hiking, and that's usually how I receive most of my times, is I've seen how we do this, we kind of crack and we find ourselves on the other side, and it feels, you have this longing on a new level because it's a new level of home frequency. It's a new level of your attainment when you're gathering your completion. And it feels like, oh, it's so divine. And you feel longing or you start to cry. It feels beautiful. But what you need to do, like I said, you need to carry it back. So the word that they showed me was, they said extrapolation. And I know sometimes these concepts can feel like people won't be able to understand them, but it's very simple. And they said, well, what we do is we use everything we knew here on the previous level, and we take the wisdom into the new level, but we take only that distilled wisdom so we can apply it. So I went on later and check on the on the translation meaning, and it said that to extrapolate means to take up the old, the data gathering, and bring it and apply it into the new. It's how they do the data extrapolation. So I'm like, exactly, that's what we're doing. And that's what a lot of people are not getting, why they have to have certain experiences, because they said, my mind already gets this, my consciousness knows this. But as humans that are using what we've already learned in the older template, we're not deleting it. We're just simply raising its octave of being and applying it on a new level. So that's what's really happening. That's how I'm being shown. So these experiences that we have with each barrier, it's basically just a natural like layer, right? It's just how it is. That's what we talk about, the way of the veils between worlds, or the veils are thinning between the worlds. We just call them like that. But they're vibrational codes that we're unlocking with each new initiation. So we take this and we extrapolate and we bring it back, and only with that we can have this flow of energy, this dynamics between the grounded, the unity of one within our inner vortex, and the unity of all, which we say sometimes we're all one and we're all source, but a lot of people are not integrated in their own vortex, and they only want to escape into the source, and they get gobbled up by existence and they forget who they are. And that's, like I said, and we can get a lot of fanatic expression and illusions because of that. So we don't really understand. But I forgot to mention something else to apply before, because I talked about direct source incarnation, not incarnations, just, yeah, it's very hard to say that, but direct source dissensions. I know there's some on the planet that are saying, I think it was it Amelia Benz? I don't know, but there's some people who were saying I'm directly of source. They were remembering, or you can find these examples, like I said, in Dolores' books. But even then, you have memories of parallelity. You have these feelings because it's still, it went through, it traveled through these gateways, because that's just how in these universal principles, how we're all applied, how everything is applied through those principles. That's what I want to say. So in that, sometimes you will feel like you didn't have these incarnations on the planet. You're not shown these things. You feel like you're in a different way, or you're traveling to this planet in a different sense, and you're not getting it. And sometimes people told me, but they said, wow, I remember you from past life. And I looked at them and like, no, my whole body was like, no, no, no. And I've asked Spirit, I said, but why are they then still feeling it, right? Why are they feeling this? And I was shown that there's an aspect of them that really relates to an aspect of you. But a lot of that, what I was shown, is that the past and future timelines can be like covering up each other, because in truth everything is a sphere, it's not linear. So what people sometimes think it's a past life, it's more of a parallel experience, and because we all have these aspects. But those people who are not yet fully conscious of their parallel aspects, their stellar selves or versions, sometimes they will project that into their physical earthly lives. And if you felt you more came from these high realms and you didn't have, and you thought, well, some of the people have first time, they have their first lifetimes on earth, and they don't get it how people say, I remember you, or sometimes it's because if you were a source incarnation being, which is from the Dolores perspective, she says there's more of these beings coming in now at this time of the shift. People will sometimes relate to you so closely, not because they will confuse you for a soul sister or soul group, but because your variety, your width of this soul all-encompassed nature will be so nurturing that they will feel they belong within it, because it's really all-encompassing, and they will have a remembrance of you. But sometimes it's also about the past and future timeline that are, it's kind of like they're overlayering, almost like sometimes you remember yourself, but in a different way. It's almost like you from the future. So someone says, wow, I remember you from a past lifetime, and you feel, but okay, why are you still remembering? And it's almost like as a source being, some just took imprints to be able to even exist on Earth, and without earthly incarnations, but only imprints. So you do not have past lifetimes on Earth, for example. They may be memories of parallel lifetimes. And these people are not yet fully aware of them, so they cannot process on that level. So they will kind of filter it as this experience. So I want to share this if there's some of you who had similar experiences and you're asking yourself, why is this happening? But no, it's like, you're not getting it. So it can be other dimensions or the future sensing. So they're having a future experience with you, and they do have a feeling, but a lot of times the feelings we're having, and the feelings are always the right, but it's sometimes our capacity of understanding on a human level is not yet that developed. We can kind of like make it something that is a bit distorted. So I want to talk about something here again, right? I want to return to this because this is of ultimate importance. This threshold and this breaking through is sometimes we can call these the spiritual barriers. And these barriers, we don't just unlock dimensionally through these densities, but we also do them in relationships. And I was shown this in one of my relationships with my sacred sister, that in our first interactions, we were both so extremely enthusiastic about each other. We're like, oh, I wanted to share everything. And, until we had that first clash, which is, I'm still unique. I'm still a unique human with my own unique mission. And I'm like this. So before the merging, it was like this, before the merging and breaking through those spiritual barriers could even occur, there needed to be that full acceptance with that respect. So that thing with the thing that can happen be like this. You see, the fist is still the individual, but there's aspects of us that are interlayered, and you can do it like this, right? And these barriers keep us apart. So how deep are we willing to go to move beyond them? And in most of my relationships, I saw that most people they still stop with with this first barrier. There's many, even like here with the layers of the onion. So as much as we're doing this internally through breaking through these dimensions, we're also doing this in our relationships, so that we're collectively establishing these new pathways as well. And I've noticed that most people will stop at the very first, which is, I'm different, you're different, we can find a mutual ground, okay, lack of respect, bond weakens, So the thing is that it's important in relationships that we meet up with these barriers, so that we deal with them, that we meet ourselves, we see what's the deal here. And from the initial one to the deeper ones, right? Because we're always going deeper. Many, like I said, they stop at the first barrier, which is accepting our differences. Can we still be one and yet, be different and unique and still co-create? That's the whole aspect of co-creation. So it's really important. And for us to do that work with another, we had to do a lot of extreme work with our own inner selves first. Okay, so now let's move to this part, which is these spiritual barriers we've talked about here, and then the grounded counterparts of us, not just the ground crew, right? I want to say that we really need to be grounded pillars in order to transmit, because we can't transmit this cosmic frequency otherwise, if we're not that conscious energetic pillar. And otherwise we're being sucked even into this false light, and we think we're going somewhere up, but we're not bringing it down. So we're not fueling it, because the whole point of the inner earth is it has the template and the blueprint for the new earth. So it's almost like our outer and the inner, they need to meet. So the thing is that our light human earth grid cannot be sustained by escaping into these false lights. And this is how also the matrix works, to create these energy leakages and to still feed off of the energy of the life force of humans. It's not just through what we say the dark agendas, getting people to have focus only on the survival needs, into the carnal things, into the false light grid, all of that. But it also in a way can mislead you through that which is only light, and this another extreme. So until these extremes exist within one individual or the whole, we're not able to hold the light of unity. It's just how it is. So we cannot co-create the new earth light grid in the physical, because it is the physical what we're doing. In the ethereal, the blueprint is already set. And my friend said, well, maybe these people who are just moving up, maybe they're holding this on the more ethereal level. And yeah, might be. But if our energy is not there, those of us who are mastering ourselves to do that, to, create this sacred pillar work to anchor our grid points, then if it's not really here, it will be polarized. And to have it scattered, it's going to be in extreme, either extreme dark and extreme light, and it's not going to be in the clear vortex, which is our balanced self, our sustained self, our sovereign self, and therefore it can sustain the earth, the new grid. It's one and the same. So one important aspect here, again, returning to the sketch with the universal stargates, is that we are, in a way, what we're doing, a lot of us, we're synthesizing all of these aspects, right? So maybe we have connections or cosmic links to different lineages, and we might stop at a certain aspect more, and people would say, oh, I'm from here, right? I'm from Andromeda. And they would feel really strongly linked to here. And that's one aspect there at that time they're really, really relating to. But when we synthesize all these as life essences, because that's the whole thing, all together it's called the tree of life. And you have a unique blueprint set up within yourself too. So it's not just a life of a certain something. For me, it was very strongly, I already explained this, a priest or priesthood. And a lot of part of me felt through that feeding a lot of isolation and focus only on this, and the denial of the human, just the human, joy of life, doing these things. So I needed to kind of balance this within my human incarnation at this point. So the seeds of everything we've been doing, the priesting, the guruing, the way showing, everything I've been shown, it's already been set up. It's been set up in motion. What we're doing now as the divine beloveds, we're going to set all these energetic templates into living reality, into living motion reality. So it's going to be an animated process now. So these seeds have been planted by all of our counterparts. These are all our counterparts. And we've been planting those seeds, and now the human self, the human aspect is going to say, I'm just going to live it now. And a lot of us are feeling this call to, I just want to live my ascension now, right? I don't want to make it this heavy process or all this processing, because it feels like I went through that. So we're no longer associating with just one role. People saying, I'm a priest, I'm this. What if when we actually do this work, we are a synthesis? We're just simply a divine, beloved human being, equal counterpart to all other life forms and existences, a galactic homo luminous, and that's it. So living these various multidimensional aspects, and I teach this in my multidimensional ascension course, as well as the cosmic beloved. You can also get both two together, and the reduced energy exchange, and that's it. But I want to also say, for those who want to search for greater knowledge, and Spirit always reminds me of that, seeking greater hard knowledge, we really first have to do our earthly stuff. And sometimes we want to skip ahead, and people say, I want to do this, or why is this person able to do that and they're not? Because it's their rite of passage. The rite of passage means it's something you're allowed to do. Simply your higher self allows you. You allow yourself because you're there and you're mastering yourself there. But it has to be in alignment with our earthly experience. If it's not, like I said, it will feel like we're not living it. And I've met a lot of people who are in their spiritual processing. They felt a lot of this higher love and remembrance, but they weren't yet able to bring it to the physical. So they had huge expectations from it. And a part of them felt sad. So they just went and had an earthly experience. And I had one of my friends said that. He said, oh, now I'm just more about the earthly living and just having these experiences, and I'm going to have a child. They have a child and things like that. And it's beautiful, because we really need to let it be an organic processing. We can't just do it here, right? It's not all happening in our head. So we will get all the great knowledge, all the vastness of cosmos, and time and space will open up for us. But if we won't even need it and know how to apply it in our life, then why is it important? Because everything that I receive from Spirit, I apply it by sharing it, by those who are really, truly also, in a way, feeling that they're initiates of this, and they're only called to this, so that it has a meaning and purpose. It's not just like I write on my book and then I look up in the air and I do nothing, right? Everything, in a way, it has to be grounded, it has to be processed, has to be integrated. So to be in alignment with earthly experience, in alignment with this higher knowledge, then we can receive more divine remembrance, because it's going to come from this beautiful exchange. And one more thing about these energy leakages. Oh, pardon me. Every single time, right, where we're not in the now moment, even when you have a thought of someone who's maybe they're not away, they're away from you, they're not physically with you, or you're thinking about something that took place or something you want to happen. A lot of people are waiting for something to happen. Instead of waiting, even for the beloved, for divine reunion, for, you know, sacred sexual couplings, all of this that a lot of us feel we're called to and we're preparing for, we're always rather, you know, what I've been shown is we rather should focus on you are living it. You are your divine beloved. You are in preparation. You're always in preparation. You're not waiting for it. You're not like looking out your window and waiting someone to come out of thin air, or, you know, or in the past, looking too much in the past, because this energy life force is never and ever has been stronger there in the now moment. The present moment is the strongest synthesis of our life force. So when we know how to work with that, we can build a strong foundation in our inner vortex to do the work. And remember, I've showed you these tiny little keys that are very important. They're sacred keys to this. It's like every time you're going to build up towards this new threshold. First, you might going to have a few challenges, and you won't be able to. It will feel like a blank for me when it's something I know I'm supposed to receive and I'm not yet getting it. It feels like, oh, what's next? I can't know it. I can't see it, and I know when I don't, I know it's for a reason. And then I'm not even thinking about it. I let it go. I do my earthly stuff because, like I said, we need to do our earthly, grounded work. And then when it's ready, it comes. And for me, recently, it's just like a balloon. A water balloon came. For the next step, it was revealed to me. It was just like this, this, this. And when it's revealed for me personally, I don't even have to, you know, take a book and write it all down. It's just like, check, check, check. Oh, that's what I need to do. And you let it go. And then focus again on the physical stuff, and the processing of how to happens again naturally. So you see, everything I share, it's a mixture of cosmic light information, but then how? How are we coping with this as human beings? And that's the whole purpose. So sometimes people don't understand what I share. They think I'm just some person talking blah blah to myself. For those of you, you know, sorry if you're not receiving from me, you're not meant to, and I respect that. I really do. But please do not criticize my work or what I do, because if you don't understand it, it just means it's not for you. We don't have to criticize each other anymore. What we can do is uplift and encourage each other. I've shared this before. Even if you don't understand something, bless it anyway. Be grateful for it anyway. Every experience, you know, when we're breaking through these codes, sometimes it will feel like, why did I have to go through this? Oh, it's so heavy, it's hard. But when you're on the other side, when you're on this side, right? You're gonna be like, that's why. But what we're gonna do, again, I've had this just recently. I thought I'm already done and this, you know, one repeated, but then I still had the dreams recurring and things coming back, and I'm like, oh, so okay, what I'm doing is with this new, I have to come back. I have to extrapolate. Again, I know, fancy word, but it's just going back, retrospecting. You know, it's like planets, they retrograde for a reason. And then using the already known and what I've integrated, but in a new way, because I already crossed the threshold. Okay, so this is for today. Lots of information, sure much more, but we're building these new dimensional spaces within. Also, like I said, practicing also the physical work. If you've seen some of the things that great masters do, what they do is, you know, if you've seen the movie Karate Kid, you know, he had to do a lot of this physical chores, right? Do this, wipe, you know, he had to have these movements. In the end, they were all part of his training, and he just knew the moves. He was there on the battlefield. He's like, wow, I know the moves. How's this possible? Because of my training. And that's what spirit initiates are all about. We don't have to know what we're going through not to trust it, but when we're on the other side of what the training really served us for, we're going to be like, exactly, and it all adds up. The minuses and pluses meet each other. It creates a beautiful space of neutrality, of embracing that new for us wherever we are. It's perfect. What I share, it's not meant as judgment, but what I do is I sometimes need to poke and push certain buttons, because for us to move into the new, we also have to let go a lot of the old, because it's already established. It doesn't serve. So what do we do when we're embracing the new? Sometimes we also have to, you know, see through the veils and see through the things that are just as they are, no longer serve us. So sometimes it will be awkward or uncomfortable to meet those aspects too. And I know, don't be offended if sometimes you hear certain things you don't like to hear. It's not personal for anyone. I'm saying it's not personal. I just share. I know my mission the best, so I know why I'm doing and saying the things I am. And a part of you who are receiving for whatever aspect you receive from in this video is probably thinking the same thing. And those of you who don't understand this, bless it anyway, because I'm blessing all of the life in creation as well. It's all perfect. It's all unfolding as it needs to. I know it sounds like a wishy-washy for some of you who are maybe going through turbulent times, but believe me, I am as well. On each level, there will always be, like I said, a little friction. And I remember reading Jeffrey Hoppe with Saint Germain's wisdom and guidance. And he said, well, just because you're going to be in that new energy mastery won't mean now your life will be without any challenges. There will still be challenges, but how you will move through them will change. It will really change, because now we understand the knowledge how this is done, and we're working with it. We're working for it, and we're working towards that which we know is true. So, my sweet beloveds, thank you. Check my pages about my courses, my mastery courses, Cosmic Beloved, Multidimensional Ascension, lots of stuff. I know. Also my light activations, and I also offer self-mastery portraits with your unique codes for those of you interested. And yeah, I don't want to get too busy though, so I won't propagate myself too much, as I don't want to get too busy. You know, life is about enjoying as well. So as you're guided. So thank you also for donating for all of this. This is bigger teachings I share, but you know, they're not actually teachings, and yet in a way, yeah, they are, from how we can use that in our linear language. So thank you for your words of encouragement, for appreciation. All the blessings we're sending outwards also return to us, and I'm always blessing everything anyway. So thank you for staying updated, for staying tuned, with always love, wisdom, and power. And I'll talk to you again soon in the next update. Have a beautiful month of June, by the way. Bye-bye. Take care. I love you all so much.
Welcome into